There is something living inside you right now that has never once doubted your worth, never once questioned whether you were enough, never once looked at the mess of your life, the mistakes, the missed opportunities, the relationships that did not work, the dreams that got delayed, the mornings you could not get out of bed, and concluded that you were broken beyond repair. There is something in you. Call it your inner wisdom. Call it your higher self. Call it the part of you that existed before anyone ever told you that you were too much or not enough, that has been quietly, persistently, unwaveringly on your side since the moment you arrived on this planet. And today we are going to talk about how to find it again, how to trust it again, how to let it lead. Because that power within you is not a concept. It is not a motivational slogan printed on a coffee mug. It is real. It is alive. It is available right now. And it is the most extraordinary resource you will ever have access to. And most of us spend our entire lives not knowing it is there. Now, I want to start by being genuinely honest with you, because I think you deserve honesty more than you deserve another peppy pep talk. Self-worth is hard. Not in the airy, theoretical sense, but in the daily lived, deeply personal, sometimes quietly devastating sense. Most of us are walking around with a relationship to ourselves that we would never, ever tolerate in a relationship with another person. We speak to ourselves with a harshness that would end a friendship in 30 seconds. We hold ourselves to standards that shift constantly so that no achievement is ever quite enough. We replay our failures in vivid, high-definition detail while fast-forwarding through our victories. We carry shame about things that happened years, sometimes decades ago, like a backpack we forgot we were wearing, and we wonder why we feel so heavy. And here is the quietly devastating part. We have normalized this. We have decided that this is just what it means to be self-aware, that the critical inner voice is the realistic one, that the part of us that doubts and diminishes and second-guesses is actually the responsible, mature, grounded part. And the part that believes in our own goodness and power and worth, that part we have decided is naive, possibly delusional. Definitely the part that needs to be kept in check. I want to gently but firmly challenge that. Not because I want to make you feel better in the short term, but because I want to give you back something that was taken from you before you were old enough to protect it. Let me acknowledge first what it feels like to be disconnected from your own inner power, because I think naming it precisely is the first step to changing it. It feels like constant low-grade exhaustion from trying to be enough for a standard that keeps moving. It feels like looking at other people and wondering what they have that you do not, why things seem to come more easily to them, why they seem so comfortable in their own skin, while you feel like you are always slightly performing. It feels like second-guessing your own perceptions, your own instincts, your own right to take up space. It feels like apologizing reflexively, shrinking in rooms where you should be expanding, staying quiet when you have something worth saying because some old voice has convinced you it is not worth saying. It feels like loving other people fiercely and genuinely while treating yourself like a problem that needs solving. And if any of that sounds familiar, I want you to know something. That is not the truth about who you are. That is the scar tissue of a world that did a very poor job of teaching people their own value. And scar tissue, while real, is not your identity. Here is the core challenge, and why it matters so much. When you are disconnected from your own inner power, from that deep, unshakable knowing of your own worth, you do not just feel bad. You make different decisions, smaller decisions. You take the job that is safe instead of the one that excites you, because the exciting one requires you to believe you can do it. You stay in relationships that do not honor you, because somewhere you have decided that this is what you deserve, or because being alone feels like a verdict rather than a choice. You do not ask for the raise, start the business, write the book, make the phone call, say the brave thing, take the leap, because the foundation beneath all of those actions, which is the belief that you are worthy of a bigger life, feels unstable. And so, you build small. You edit yourself down to a size that feels safe. And the tragedy is not that you are failing. The tragedy is that you are succeeding at being less than you are. You are very efficiently, very consistently, very faithfully living below your actual capacity. And some part of you knows that. Some part of you feels the gap. And that gap, that ache between who you are being and who you actually are, is what brought you here today. So let us talk about the framework, because I want you to understand this at a level deeper than inspiration. I want you to understand it in a way that actually changes things. Here it is. Your sense of self-worth is not a fixed trait. It is not something you were either born with in abundance or without, like eye color or height. Self-worth is a practiced relationship. It is something you build, day by day, through the accumulating weight of how you treat yourself, speak to yourself, show up for yourself, and what you decide to believe about yourself over time. Psychologists have documented this extensively. The brain, through its extraordinary capacity for neuroplasticity, literally builds new self-concept structures based on repeated input, which means that every time you choose a thought of self-respect over self-criticism, you are laying a new neural pathway. Every time you keep a promise you made to yourself, you are building evidence for your own reliability. Every time you speak kindly to yourself in a moment of failure instead of piling on, you are teaching your nervous system that you are a safe place to be. And over time, with enough repetition, these new pathways become highways. The old voice gets quieter, not because you fought it, but because you stopped feeding it and started feeding something else. The inner power I am talking about does not come from outside validation. It does not come from achievements, though achievements can be wonderful. It does not come from other people finally seeing your worth and reflecting it back to you, though that can be healing. It comes from you deciding, on the inside, in the quiet place where nobody else has access, that you are on your own side, fully, unconditionally, without requiring yourself to be perfect first. And that decision is available to you right now. Not after you fix the thing, not after you heal the wound, not after you become the version of yourself you are still working toward. Now, in this body, in this life, with everything still unresolved. Step 1, have the honest conversation with your inner critic, not the fighting kind, because fighting your inner critic is like wrestling with a shadow. The more energy you give it, the more real it becomes. Instead, I want you to try something different. I want you to get curious about your inner critic. Where did it come from? Whose voice is it actually? Because in my experience, the inner critic is almost never original. It is almost always a voice you inherited. A parent, a teacher, a sibling, a culture, a religion, a relationship that taught you early on that you needed to be monitored and corrected and kept in line. And at the time, internalizing that voice was a way of managing the relationship. If I criticize myself before they criticize me, I am in control. If I stay small, I am safe. If I expect nothing, I cannot be disappointed. That was a strategy. A child's creative, understandable, protective strategy. But you are not a child anymore. You do not need that protection in the same way. And that voice which you have been carrying as though it is wisdom is actually just an old habit. You can thank it for trying to protect you, and then you can choose a different internal companion. Step 2. Build an evidence file for your own power. Your brain, with its negativity bias, is extraordinarily efficient at collecting evidence for your inadequacy and extraordinarily lazy about collecting evidence for your strength. So, we are going to correct that imbalance deliberately. I want you to start, today, an evidence file, a note on your phone, a journal, a document on your computer, whatever form feels most accessible. And in that file, I want you to record every piece of evidence that you are more powerful, more capable, more resilient, and more worthy than your inner critic would have you believe. Times you overcame something difficult, times you showed up for someone who needed you, times you created something, solved something, survived something that you were not sure you could. Skills you have developed, kindnesses you have extended, moments where you chose the harder right thing over the easier wrong one. Collect this evidence the way a lawyer builds a case, because you are building a case, not against yourself, but for yourself. And the more evidence you accumulate, the harder it becomes for the old story to hold its ground. Step 3. Practice the power posture, not as performance, but as physiology. Amy Cuddy's research at Harvard demonstrated something extraordinary. Holding an expansive, open, Upright posture for just 2 minutes measurably shifts your hormonal balance, decreasing cortisol and increasing testosterone, the chemicals of confidence and power. Your body is not just a vehicle for your mind, it is a co-creator of your mental and emotional states. The way you hold your body sends constant signals to your brain about who you are and what you deserve. Slumped, contracted, head down, arms crossed, that is the body language of someone trying to be smaller. Upright, open, shoulders back, chin level, feet planted, that is the body language of someone who knows they belong in the room. So every morning, before the day begins, I want you to stand somewhere, even in your bathroom, even in your kitchen, and spend 2 minutes holding yourself like someone who trusts their own power. Not performing confidence you do not feel, but inviting it in through the doorway of your body, because it works. The body leads, and the emotions follow. Step 4. Change the conversation you have with yourself about your perceived failures. Here is something I want you to try the next time something goes wrong, the next time you make a mistake or miss the mark or fall short of what you hoped. Instead of the usual autopsy, which tends to go something like, "I cannot believe I did that. What is wrong with me? I always do this. I am so stupid. Other people would have handled this better." I want you to try responding to yourself the way you would respond to your very best friend in the same situation. What would you actually say to someone you loved if they came to you having made the same mistake? You would probably say something like, "Hey, that was hard. I know you tried. What can we learn from this? What do you need right now? How can you take care of yourself and then try again?" That compassion, that warmth, that patient, problem-solving energy, you deserve that from yourself at least as much as your best friend deserves it from you. In fact, you deserve it more, because you live with yourself every single moment of every single day. And if the most constant relationship in your life is one of criticism and conditional approval, that affects everything. If you make it one of genuine kindness and unconditional support, that also affects everything in the most beautiful possible direction. Step 5. Identify one area where you have been outsourcing your worth. This is a specific and very powerful step. Think about where in your life you are most dependent on external validation to feel okay about yourself. Is it work, where you need the praise of a specific person to believe your contribution matters? Is it relationships, where you need constant reassurance to feel loved? Is it social media, where you check the numbers and let them tell you whether you are interesting or relevant or seen? Is it your appearance, where a bad hair day or a number on a scale has the power to tank your entire sense of self for the day? Just pick one area, one place where you have handed over the key to your self-worth, and let someone or something outside of you hold it. And then ask yourself, honestly, what would it look like to take that key back? Not to stop caring what others think entirely, that is both impossible and not actually desirable, but to reduce your dependence on their opinion from 100% to, say, 50%, and to fill that other 50% with your own considered assessment of your own worth. What do you actually think about the work you did? What do you know about how much you care in the relationship? What is your own honest, loving evaluation of yourself today? Practice turning to that internal voice first, before the external one. Practice making it the primary reference point rather than the secondary one. Step 6. Say the affirmation in the language of trust. I want to give you specific words because language matters enormously. The specific words you use about yourself carve grooves in your subconscious. So every day, morning or evening, or both, I want you to say these words with your hand on your heart. I trust the incredible power within me. I am enough, right now, today, exactly as I am. My worth is not earned, it is inherent. I am on my own side, fully and unconditionally. I believe in the person I am becoming, and I honor the person I already am. Say it slowly. Say it like you mean it, even if you only mean it a little. Say it like a plant that needs watering. Not because one recitation will transform everything, but because the recitation, practiced daily, becomes the groove, and the groove becomes the highway, and the highway becomes the life. Right now, before this video ends, here is your call to action. I want you to do one thing. Write down in the comments below one piece of evidence for your own power. Just one. Something you have done, survived, created, chosen, or become that proves you are more capable than your inner critic suggests. It can be big or small. I raised a child who knows they are loved. I started over in a new city with nothing and built a life. I asked for help when I needed it. I chose kindness when I could have chosen bitterness. I got up this morning when staying in bed would have been easier. Write it, because naming your own power in community is an act of radical self-trust. And when someone else reads what you write, it might be exactly the evidence they needed to find their own. Share this video with someone who has forgotten how powerful they are. Someone who has been listening to the wrong voice for too long. Someone who needs a reminder that the incredible power within them has never gone anywhere. It is waiting, it is ready, it has been on their side all along. Subscribe and come back, because every single week we do this work together. The honest, warm, practical work of becoming people who know their worth and live from that knowing out loud. And I want you here for every conversation. Let me leave you with this, and I want you to carry it with you today, tomorrow, and every day after. The power within you is not something you have to earn, build from scratch, or wait until you are healed enough to access. It is already there. It was there before the world got its hands on you and started telling you who you were and were not supposed to be. It is there underneath the self-doubt, underneath the old stories, underneath the scar tissue of every experience that taught you to make yourself small. It has been patiently waiting, like a lamp that never went out, for you to turn back toward it. And every time you choose a kind thought over a cruel one, every time you stand up straight in a room where you used to hunch, every time you keep a promise to yourself, every time you speak with respect about your own life and your own journey, you are turning toward it. You are saying to the power within you, I see you, I trust you, lead the way, and it will. It has always been willing to. It was only ever waiting for you to say yes. Go with so much love. Trust the power within you. It has never once stopped trusting you.